2K has revealed more information for WWE 2K25 via an exclusive interview with godisageek.com, and there's lots of information to take from it. So let's dive in to some new information for 2K25. So this exclusive interview was written by Chris White over at God is a Geek. Thank you very much for the information. It seems like they were able to participate in a Q&A session with some of the 2K developers, and as a result, were able to get some exclusive information for us. So Andrea Listenberg, the senior narrative designer over Visual Concepts and former writer on SmackDown, I didn't realize that, that's pretty interesting. They gave us some interesting tidbits about the island, saying that it's not like anything you've seen in My Rise. So although they didn't seem to give any special information out about the island, it seems to be a case of, yes, it has a storyline, but it's very separate from My Rise and it's a very different experience. So I'm curious to see how the island plays out as opposed to something like My Rise, which is a more linear story. There was an interesting quote that I saw about the island that basically said WWE games are like bringing video games to wrestling. The island is about bringing wrestling to video games, so perhaps it's more open world than we're actually realizing. It's more open, kind of like the city where it is open, you can do whatever you want, but it brings wrestling to that kind of GTA style open world. I don't know, it seems interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out. According to Al Stavola over at 2K, they alluded to some of the tracks on the soundtrack this year being some deeper cuts from WWE's music catalog. And the writer here, Chris, seems to indicate that it could be some classic pay-per-view themes or maybe some promo themes like My Way by Limp Bizkit. Seems odd that they name dropped that specific song, but I'm curious to see what the soundtrack will be like. I'm assuming something like The Island can probably give us the opportunity to listen to more music, so we'll see how that one plays out. There was an interesting interview posted by Hip Hop Gamer last year. It was an interview for 2K24, and I believe it was Lionel Jinx, who's one of the creative directors on the WWE 2K series, basically said that there was a match type that he really wanted in the game, but it required a lot of like reworking and a lot of mechanic changes. Basically, it was a lot of work. A lot of people are kind of theorizing that the match he was talking about was the Underground match, and this quote from Derek Donahue, who's the lead combat designer at Visual Concepts, who make WWE 2K, there's kind of a theme here going, basically saying that the idea of a ring without ropes has completely upended how combat works in the game, which kind of makes sense. So you're going to feel immediately when you get into the match, the interactions on the edge of the ring are completely reworked, and something that helps both underground matches and fighting outside of the arena in brawl arenas. Interestingly as well, they also say that the crowd will react differently during the underground matches, with the fans around the arena, the ring, banging on the ring mat and kind of reacting to what's going on in the match. So that's very cool. So this is one of the matches I'm actually most looking forward to, is the Bloodline match. So what is exactly involved in the Bloodline rules match? Well, according to Chris here, he says that they've got some information about how the match plays out in the game. So both players will have like a special payback, and they can use that payback up to 3 times in the match. And each time that you use it will be a run-in. So much like a real Bloodline match, you'd have, you know, Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns, and each person gets a run-in, kind of like the main event of WrestleMania actually with Cody and Roman. Each person has like a unique run-in to happen over time based on their momentum meter. So that's what Chris is writing here. There's a mechanic that allows each superstar a total of 3 run-ins during the match, which takes the form of a payback ability. Once you reach the right number of gauges to use a run-in, someone could be called out to help within a Bloodline rules match. Apparently there's going to be exclusive titles for intergender wrestling as well. Derek Donahue, again lead combat designer, stated that there will be titles to unlock within the game that both male and female superstars can compete for, which I think is great. I think this makes a lot of sense for things like the 24/7 title or the hardcore title. I just think it makes a lot of sense for some of those like those odd outlier titles, things like the 24/7 and the hardcore title, to be intergender, since anything can really happen during those kind of matches. Barricade dives have their own allocated moveset. So in my previous kind of breakdown of the trailer, I said that when Seth Rollins jumped off the barricade during that clip, it looked like it was the same animation from jumping off a table, the announce table, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like you can go into the moveset and you can customize the move that the superstar makes when they jump off the barricade which is cool. I really hope that we get a lot of unique, or I really hope we get a lot of cool moves to do off of the barricade, things like 450s or shooting star presses. It's not very realistic, but I just want the game to be fun, so I think that would be really cool if they let us do some crazy moves off the barricade. I think another thing as well that's worth highlighting is that the LED boards around the ring can also get damaged during matches now, so you can actually kind of see it in the screenshot here, just behind Rhea. It looks like the corner, like the curve of this barricade here has been like dented in, like some of the panels are off, and that's a really nice touch. I think it adds a little bit to the kind of environmental reaction to what your character's doing, because I've always thought the barricade is very stiff when you throw your opponent into it, when in real life it does kind of bend and move. So having that ability to kind of just break a couple of the bulbs or the LEDs, or it changes the texture or something, I just think that's really cool. It's a nice little touch. MyGM is getting cross-brand PLEs and trading. So Alan Flores, the design director at Visual Concepts, also stated, we're adding in cross-brand PLEs, which sort of plays into the betrayal part, because now you can sort of put your own superstars against each other, I guess. There's a whole bunch of new GMs, bunch of new dramas, lots of backstabbing, and you can trade people. I'm curious to see the store description says that you can draft people, but I don't know if that just means the initial draft. I know a lot of people have been saying over the last while that they want to have a yearly draft, and I think especially in these multi-year storylines with our multiplayer multi-year storylines, it'd be really cool to do a yearly draft where you can probably steal some guys from your opponent and stuff. So yeah, I'm hoping for a yearly draft, but either way, trading is a good step forward. 2K Showcase is finally getting rid of slingshot technology and bringing back fully animated cutscenes. Dino Zucconi, the designer at Visual Concepts, said that we wanted the emphasis on Showcase this year to be really about playing the game more than it is watching, and I think that's what we were kind of hearing over the last few years. So I think what's really cool about this change is it's specifically community driven, right? The fans for years have been saying that the slingshot tech is not great, because it basically means that you're putting the controller down and you're watching pretty substantial like chunks of a match, and there's no commentary, it's generic music, and the footage is usually blurred to the point where you don't even want to watch it anyway. So having these animated scenes within the game makes it more playable, makes it more replayable, I think, as well. Adding to the replayability here, it was added that there will be several outcomes for each of the showcase modes, so you can actually approach these matches in different ways. So for example, there's an animation for winning the match, there's an animation for losing the match. It doesn't say what the third one is, but it does kind of go on to indicate that there are some dream matches in the showcase this year. Probably people like Umaga getting to face people like, or getting the team or face people like Jacob Fatu or Cody Rhodes, who obviously Umaga did not get to do. Yeah, I really appreciate the kind of dream match aspect of this. I think that adds a lot to showcase mode. Many matches will feature intergender options, so you can actually do a Royal Rumble with both genders, which is awesome. So you can have one Royal Rumble match that has like 15 women, 15 men. Every single match is intergender apparently as well. The only exception for that is something like a mixed tag match, where a mixed tag has a specific rule set where, you know, your partner tags out and the other person has to come in. It's part of the mixed tag rules. So backstage brawls are now back. They now have 8 players, which is very cool. I think, now if I remember rightly, I think Status might have uploaded a mod to the community creations last year that allowed us to do backstage brawls with multiple people like this. So I'm glad that it's here officially. The camera didn't really work in that modded match, so I'm excited to see how it plays out officially in this year's game. They've also added a third-person camera. So Derek Donahue goes on to explain more. This is it was actually developed to allow a free cam during entrances. So you could actually have a kind of a 360 view of the superstars that were coming out. I think we actually saw a little bit of this. I'm going to put up a clip now of what I think that will look like during entrances. But it seems like it was a case of, okay, we're developing this third-person camera for entrances this year, and we're also building a third-person camera for the island, because you're going to be moving around the island as a free character. Why not add it into matches as well? So apparently during matches, you can just use this third-person camera, and it'll just I assume it'll put the camera behind your wrestler, and it'll just look like any regular game. Be honest, it's probably not something I'm going to be using because I quite like the presentation of the game. I quite like the fact that you've got the hard cam view, which is your traditional view of the ring, and then you've got your other ramp view, which they've added last year, which is looking more towards the stage. And apparently you can trigger this third-person camera with just one button press, so they've made it really easy to turn on and off for people who, like me, who are maybe unsure about the feature. It should be easy enough to turn off if I don't end up liking it. Finally, there is a new giant archetype, which adds in a new way to play apparently. So previously there have been 4 archetypes. I can't remember exactly what they are, but it's things like, it's like brawler, specialist, high flyer. Well, now there's a new one called giant. The way it's been described here is that they will be completely unable to climb ropes, and they'll have an extra health bar due to their heft, but also they'll have less stamina because they are bigger, I guess. But I'm curious to see how the giant archetype plays out. I think it adds a lot to the game because it doesn't make a lot of sense for people like Yokozuna or Andre the Giant to be climbing the top rope and doing these crazy like flipping iron elbow drops and all that, because it's just not realistic. And honestly, like, I'm all for the fun in games, right? But it breaks that immersion a little bit when you've got a giant climbing the top rope to do a big move like that. The last thing I just want to quickly touch on as well is that 2K has announced that there will be a new 2K mobile game coming out at the end of this year. The announcement was made on social media with CM Punk talking straight to a camera, and it was announced that an exclusive mobile WWE 2K game is coming to Netflix games. There was like absolutely no details explained whatsoever other than the fact that it's going to be a full-on 2K game. It's worth noting here, like WrestleTalk mentions in this article, there was a 2015 WWE 2K game for iOS and Android that was developed by Visual Concepts and N-Space that kind of did look like that year's game, but it wasn't overly well received, and I don't know many people that had it. It also notes here that apparently there was a mobile title, 2K Battlegrounds, which was also for mobile, which I didn't realize that 2K Battlegrounds came out on mobile, but regardless, WWE 2K is coming to mobile via Netflix games. Alright, so that's going to be us for today. A very slow news day, but I just thought I would cover some of the exclusive information coming from God is a Geek there, and of course the announcement that WWE 2K is returning to mobile with an actual proper game, and it's coming to Netflix at the end of this year. If you want to be kept up to date for more WWE 2K news, then please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps the channel, and we've been growing a lot over the last little while, so I really appreciate everyone who has subbed already. Yeah, if you want to know more, join the train, get on board. That's going to be us for today. Have a good one, and bye for now.